The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live on a Tuesday. I know you're probably confused. You're like, what in the heck is going on over there? So let me give you a little update on some of the things that are going on over here. I know Tuesday is normally Ask Dr. Doreen Day, and it will normally be Ask Dr. Doreen Day. Whenever we have the pleasure of her company, man, it will be Ask Dr. Doreen Day. But sometimes, if she's not able to be here, we're gonna fill in with some parent-to-parent talks because we've changed our Autism Live schedule a little bit. You know, there was a time when I was much younger when this hair color was brown. All right, it was still out of a bottle, but still, it was brown. But I wasn't hiding it. Anyway, there was a time when we used to do shows Monday through Friday, and they were 4 hours long. Woo! And then we went to 2 hours long, and then we went to 1 hour long, and then we went to not every day of the week, and we tried different things. And, you know, now the most recent couple of years, we've been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and doing Ask Dr. Doreen on the Tuesdays, and so on and so forth. Well, we're going to shrink, and I don't know if it's permanent, but it might very well be. And we're going to be doing shows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays now. Live shows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Normally on Tuesdays, it'll be Ask Dr. Doreen, and then we'll do Autism Live, interviews whenever possible, which doesn't leave a whole lot of time for me to do parent-to-parent talks. So whenever we don't have Dr. Graham Pichet, we might fill in with some parent-to-parent. And last week we had talked about how it's back to school, so we thought it was appropriate that we would fill in with a back to school segment. You know that I love to be completely transparent with you guys about what's happening, and it's just, look, the snow is on the roof, and I am getting older, and I need to be able to do all the things that I need to be able to do, plus which we want to focus on giving you the best possible content, not just throwing tons and tons of content at you. And we have a 14-year library, so there's a lot of things there for you to check out. We never want you to be alone, but I can't do it all, my friends. I can't do it all. So we're going to 2 days a week and see if we can't get Shannon as healthy as possible. Then we'll see. But I hope that you guys will appreciate this format. So we are live right now. Today is August 12th, 2025. And we all of the chats are open. Our fabulous Chris Desmond. Thank God for Chris Desmond. How many times a week do I say that? He's showing you on the screen all the different ways that you can connect with us. I would love some interaction today. I would love to hear from you guys. Love to hear what is going on with you. And I have a couple of things that I would love to hear about specifically from you guys. But in a second, we're going to talk about back to school. Want to remind all of you that I know that most of you are listening in podcast. And I so appreciate all of our viewers, whether you're watching or listening. But when you're listening in podcasts, it's a free download. And I always remind you that it's free to you, but it's not free. So that's why you have advertising. You will hear advertising as you listen to the podcast. I hope you appreciate and go, yes, this is what makes it free for me, and makes it free for people around the world. But if it is troubling to you and you really want to get your content completely devoid of ads, easy to do. You just go to glow.fm/autismlive. When you subscribe there, it's $5 a month, and it's even less if you subscribe for a year. But let's say $5 a month, and that's really, really reasonable because you get everything that we do here. You get the Ask Dr. Doreens, you'll get the parent-to-parent, you'll get special events when we do them because we are going to be doing some special events coming up. Speaking of which, I just want to say that, let me get to that in a second because we're going to show the promo for it in a second. I'm going to talk to you about All Ghouls Gala, but before we get to that, another special event that we have coming up, we are working on the toy guide really hard right now. This is the time of year when it's like, boom, right? Because we're planning on, fingers crossed, we're hoping to get the toy guide out by November 13th this year. so that you'll have it like a full week before Black Friday. That's my goal. I'm working very hard to make that happen. But I just want to put a shout out that we're still in the submission point of the toy guide. So every day toys are arriving and we're so thrilled. It's my favorite time of year because we get to unbox and I go, look at the toys. So a couple of things. I just want to make sure that we have left no stone unturned this year. If you know somebody who has a product that is great for the autism community in any way, shape, or form, whether it is a toy, a gift, a book, something, anything that would be great for the autism community, I want you to let them know to reach out to me today as soon as possible, because we're taking submissions up until September 1st, and I'm trying really hard not to push that date back. So we need to have the items in-house by the 1st, because then we take the month of September and we have judges of all different walks, people who are speech and language pathologists, OTs, we have BCBAs, we have people who are behavior technicians, we have parents, we have teens on the spectrum. We have a wide variety of people to play with the toys, and when possible, we even have very little kiddos to be able to play with the toys so that we can see what does everybody love, and everybody gets to kind of vote. Not kind of vote, but for the kids, it's a little bit different. We see what they go back to, right? Because if it's kiddos on the spectrum, sometimes they're not able to say, hey, this is my favorite toy and this is why. We're observing that. So anyway, if you know somebody who would like to submit, again, a toy, a book, a gift, we have so many different age ranges. In particular this year, I'm really looking at the caregiver section, which is usually gifts that are for people who are caregivers or parents of individuals on the spectrum. And what I'm looking for are things that help that individual with their day, or help them with their day with their child, teen, or adult on the spectrum. That's really what that category is about. And sometimes they're just very clever gifts in that category. So have people email me. My email is shannon@autism-live.com. So that I can get the registration package to them and they can get those things shipped to us, because we're really like 3 weeks away now from the deadline. So there is that. There was something else I wanted to talk about. There is a new product that we have been asked to get a couple of parents it's an online product that we would like a couple of parents to test drive it and give feedback. It's you'll get free access to the product, and they're asking for a couple of hours of you checking it out. So if you're a parent of someone who is on the spectrum and that's of interest to you, also you would write to me today, because I need volunteers to do that over, really by tomorrow. So write to me, Shannon@autism-live, if that is something you want to do. Okay. Last thing I said we were going to talk about, and then we'll show the promo and then we'll do the presentation, but the All Ghouls Gala is coming up. This is the big fundraiser that Autism Care Today does every year in the fall. It's the 4th annual, and it raises money for grants. And these are grants for families, and they get to decide what they're asking for. They're asking for a safety fence. That's what they're asking for. They've granted so many safety fences. They're asking for assistance with an assistance dog. Usually, because the maximum grant you can get is $5,000, and usually assistance dogs are more than that, but you can ask for $5,000 towards the assistance dog. But they do that, they do iPads, whatever the family is asking for. But the truth is, there's no grants unless there's money in the coffers. So from time to time, we do fundraisers, and this is the big one every year, the All Ghouls Gala. It is an adult Halloween party, and it is the best Halloween party. It is the Hollywood party of my dreams. Do you know what I mean? When I was a kid, I always dreamed of, someday I'm going to live in Hollywood and I'm going to be at a party like this. And, where it will just be incredible and off the chain and really, really fun. And that's exactly what it is. And can I tell you that other people have said that too, that they've come to the party and said, this is the quintessential Hollywood party. But it's also a costume party, Halloween. So, dancing, fun, the whole thing. So if you're going to be in the LA area, really want to encourage you to get a ticket and come. Talk about getting to rub elbows with the celebrities. But it's amazing food and it's open bar. I mean, the price tag on it is incredible. If you are not able to be in Los Angeles, I want you to know that you can gift tickets to an autism family. Adults only at this party, not the kiddos. And you can just donate any amount to go towards those grants. So let's take a look at this first promo, the Save the Date promo that Chris has put together, and then we'll come back and talk back to school.
It's that time of year when everyone gets all dolled up. They put on their best face and they bring a friend to the 4th annual All Ghouls Gala that raises funds for autism care today. Mark your calendars for the 25th of October. It's going to be a real scream. And prepare to run to get your tickets before they're all gone.
He's so clever. I should have warned you that it's a little, not for your littles. Apologies, but hopefully you're okay. For those of you who didn't get to see it, it's clever beyond clever. You should go to YouTube and check out the video. All right. So we need to talk about back to school, because for some of you, today might be the first day. Tomorrow might be the first day. For some of you, you still have a couple of weeks. There is a plethora of information in this presentation. Some of it, you'll be like, darn it, I wished I'd known this 2 weeks ago. I apologize. We weren't here 2 weeks ago. I was on the road. But I figured better to give you the information now than not at all. That's what my thinking was. So let's talk about back to school, because I get so excited when it's back to school time. I'm a former school teacher, and of course I'm a mom, and I love when they're selling the pencils in the front of the store. I just love this time of year. It's like this progression of first we're going to do back to school, and then it's going to be fall, and my birthday is in the fall, and then we have Halloween, and then we have Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and then we get to start the year over again. I just love the progression of this time of year if we kind of keep things moving, right? And don't get stuck and don't get behind. That's really the sort of the key. So let's take on back to school. And for me, this is a 3-prong approach because I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with things. I always refer back to the science experiment when I was in junior high, where I don't know if you guys had to do this too, but they had the tubes, right, that were hooked up to the faucets, and you were supposed to hook the one tube up and you turned on the cold water. And then you had to feel it with your hand and go, what did I feel? And you had to write down what you felt on the piece of paper for this science experiment. And it's like, duh. And then you had to hook up the tube onto the hot spigot, and you turned it on and you felt it and you went, okay, it's hot. What did I feel? It was hot. Then the instructions tell you to braid the 2 hoses together, turn on both water, put your hand on it, and then write what you feel. And you would think that you would feel hot and cold. No, my friends, what you feel is pain, because your body doesn't know how to sort out the distinction between the 2 sensations. And I apply this science experiment to so many things in my life, because when I have too many things that are different going on at the same time, I don't know about you, but I experience either pain or paralysis, where I'm like, I don't know what to do because this is too multifaceted. So I like to break things down and call them what they are and separate them out and go, what does this need to be so that I don't feel the pain? Does that make sense? Hopefully that resonates with you. Hey, Thomas, how do you get on the podcast? Great question. You write to me, Shannon, at autism-live.com, and you tell me what you want to talk about, who you are, give me a brief bio and what you want to talk about. That's how you get on the podcast. I'm always looking for new guests, but that is the way to do that. There you go. It's on the screen. Okay, so back to, how do we segment things out in our life so that they make sense? So sometimes back to school feels painful because we're not really sure what to do. So I want to segment it out and say there are 3 different areas here. There's what goes on at home, there's what goes on at school, and then there's what's going on with your child, which is an entirely different thing. So let's take a look at these three things and see, what do we need to do? What do we need to get? And how do we need to do it? So, and segment that out. So for home, it's really about three separate things at home that we really can take control over and that we can help set up our child for success at school. So number one is the schedule. Number two is the stuff. And number three is the ritual. So let's break down all of those if we can. So first of all, let's talk about the schedule, shall we? And I think that's the next one. Yeah. So again, there's three different elements to the schedule. This is not rocket science, right? We want to make sure that our kids are on a schedule where they know what's coming. Because if we don't know what's coming, we have anxiety. And if we want to set our kids up to not have anxiety, then the first thing that we want to do is create a schedule. Now, for those of you who are like, I want to be a free spirit and I want to do things and I want my child to be a free spirit. Yes, I hear you, but your child is on the autism spectrum and your child is struggling first to know what the basis of anything is. First, we want to eliminate the stress, get them on a schedule. Then you can make a choice with your child to break the schedule, and that will not cause anxiety. Okay? So first, let's get them comfortable and get them on a schedule, then you can break it. So that means starting now, wherever you are right now, it doesn't matter when you're going to school, but we want to take the bedtime and we want to start incrementally making it earlier. Now, it's easier if you do this all around the year and you don't stay up later during the summer. But I know I'm a fun-loving person too, and sometimes we want to stay up late. But if we really want to set up our kids for success, then we need to gradually get the bedtime earlier. Now, if I were doing this presentation earlier in the summer, I would have said, take the number of days before you have to go back to school. And how many more, let's see, what time is your child going to sleep? If your child's going to sleep right now at 10:30 and you've got 30 days and you want them to go to bed at 9:30, then you have to take and put them to bed 2 minutes earlier every night, and then you will get there, right? Well, it doesn't always work out that way. Might be that you have to send them to school tomorrow and you need to get them to bed 2 hours earlier, right? That's not going to work. So I will tell you, I wouldn't try to get them to bed more than 10 minutes a day because that becomes a huge shift for them. So forgive yourself, let's start there. If you've let them stay up late and enjoy their life, forgive yourself. Life goes on, right? But we've got to start getting the wheels back on the track. So, if you can, do the equation and divide by the number of days so that it's incrementally. It's just like when we set the clocks back and forward. The sun sets 2 minutes every day different. It's like 1 minute and 47 seconds. But we don't notice it until there's a big shift and we move it an hour and then we go, what happened? And people get in car accidents and things, right? We don't want our child to feel like their life is a car accident. So we want to do it very, very small. If you don't have enough time, try to do it by 10 minutes. You'll still get there. You'll get there in 2 weeks. It'll be okay. Right? And not a lot happens in the first 2 weeks of school. So take a deep breath. Just let's get bedtimes back regimented and let's not do it cold turkey. If they're going to school tomorrow where you're like, okay, well, now you got to go to bed at 8:30 and you've been staying up till 12:30. Good luck with that, my friends. It's not going to work. You're going to be up till 2 a.m. You don't want that. They don't want that. And they're going to be tired during school. So don't do that. Incrementally. The second thing is, if you haven't already, even though I talk about it endlessly and how life-changing it is and how good it is for them and for you, if you still have avoided the visual schedule, I'm going to make one last plea here. It is time to make a visual schedule. A visual schedule helps your child to know what's coming next. And, I find people are so resistant to this. But let me ask you, how do you order your day? Do you have an Outlook calendar? I do. I live by my Outlook calendar. What am I doing today? Right? And it helps me to be able to focus and get more done. So we know that it works. We know that it works for adults. And we know that it works for kids, and it reduces stress. And I'm all about reducing the stress. If we have choices to reduce stress, why not? So it can be as simple as just start with a morning routine. Make a visual schedule for what we do in the morning. You hang one in the bathroom that shows, like the steps for brushing the teeth, or it could just be a thing brushing the teeth. You don't have to make it harder than it has to be. People have already made these for you. If you're not crafty and that's not your thing, go on Pinterest and put morning schedule routine, visual schedule, and there will be a teacher who is selling the perfect one to you for $3, and you just have to print it out. And you're helping to keep a teacher in supplies for the years. So it's not a bad thing. But giving your child a visual schedule, if your child is chronically late getting ready for school, you're going to make a visual schedule about this is the time that we do this. We have breakfast at this time, and you do the clock face or the numbers, whichever you prefer. This is the time that we load everything in the car or we go stand by the bus stop, right? You will see that your child has a different understanding of it. It's a wonderful thing. And then, of course, the last one, because things have gotten wonky during the summer, is having a meal schedule. When do we have breakfast? When do we have lunch? And when do we have dinner? And when do you have snacks even? Putting that in. Because whether you like it or not, whether your free-spirited soul likes it or not, they're going to do that at lunch. And when they're going to do that at school, you're going to have to get them to eat breakfast before they go. They're going to have lunch at a scheduled time, and they're going to come home hungry. And if we don't help them at home to sort of have that on a schedule, they will struggle at lunch and be, they won't be hungry at lunchtime, which means they'll be hungry at 2:00. And we will see tantrums come because they don't understand, why is this happening? I don't understand this. So we're going to give them this schedule, again, to reduce their anxiety. And later on, once we get the schedule all, and they're comfortable, then we're going to be able, if they say, oh, I'd like to be able to do this, whether it's with an icon or with language, you can make a decision to have a late lunch or have brunch, or it doesn't mean that you can't free road it, but let's get rid of the anxiety first of I just don't know when it's going to come. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next thing. So the stuff, and I already mentioned, I love the stuff. Oh my gosh, I love this time of year and the stuff. And you go into the store and they've got the tape and the glue sticks and the protractors. I just love it. I really, really love it. But we have to ask ourselves, what is needed? What is actually needed? And a lot of times, as you're going to back to school night, the teachers will tell you what the child actually needs this year. And I think it's when you go and you're finding out what is needed, I think it's good to buy extra, because there's always a kiddo in the class who can't afford it. And I'll tell you something, that goodwill will make you feel better about yourself. So if they say, oh, we need an 8-pack of crayons, and you go to the store and they're super cheap and you can afford it, get 3 of them and send 2 and give it to the teacher and say, hey, my child has their crayons, but I picked up 2 because they were on sale. I'll tell you something, that teacher will be on your side all year long. And that means they're going to be on that kiddo's side. And it cost you 2 crayons, and it gave you goodwill and made you feel like, hey, I helped somebody out. Because you know what? You know how sometimes somebody does something for you that you didn't see and is unexpected, and they help your kid to be successful, and you know what that feels like? Why not give that to somebody else and create goodwill with the teacher? So, figure out what is needed. And it's fun to go on a shopping trip with your kiddo. And if there are choices that can be made, oh my goodness, giving your child a choice. Do you want this one or this one? Oh, it's one of the best things we can do in life for our kiddos. Do you want this notebook or do you want this notebook? This helps them to feel excited about going to school. This is not every kiddo, but if that's a possibility with your kiddo, have them enjoy that with you. If it's a nightmare, no, go on your own and get it yourself. But then we have to figure out, where does this stuff live? Oh my gosh. I am queen of the buying all of the school supplies and then not knowing where I put them. You know what I mean? And this is not a good, don't be like me like this. But if you figure out a place, well, this is where the pencils go, and this is where the crayons are, and this is where the glue sticks are, I will tell you something, it's really, really helpful if you have a place, because then we know where it lives, and you can start to tell your child when you come home and you do your homework and you get the thing, and then you put it back. Oh my goodness. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It gives them autonomy to be able to go and get the stuff themselves if it is where it is. And all of that is part of how is it organized. You know, I told the story the other day of there was a client that was a teenager. And I recall one of our BCBAs went to the house to work with this teenager. And you know, a meeting was had with the teenager about, you know, they had a new diagnosis of autism and there was some frustration and some feelings about that. Not too sure if they wanted to spend time with any behavior technicians, you know, and the parents were unsure about, you know, what to do and where to go and what was going to happen, all this uncertainty. But the BCBA said to the teen, you know, what do you want? What are you struggling with? What would you like to be easier? And then talked with the parents and said, you know, what do you want for this young man? And what is hard? Like, what are you struggling with? What do you need help with? All of these things. But everybody talked about the fact that his room was such an unholy mess that, and that there were other things that were symptoms of this, that he did amazing work for school, totally could do the schoolwork, but he didn't turn it in, right? So it was like for nothing. So he wasn't getting good grades, even though he'd done the work, and he wasn't getting the reinforcer. So this amazing BCBA went in one day with a bunch of charts and things and labels and said to the teenager, okay, they had a lot of art supplies and they really were quite a good artist. And the BCBA said to the student, okay, we're going to organize your desk. We're going to start there. And they, you know, labeled things. They put the label and said, okay, this is where your colored pencils go. And this is a container where your markers go. And this is where we're going to put your soft erasers. And this is where we're going to put your pads of paper. And they were labeling all of it. And they just did the desk. The rest of the room looked like a disaster area. But before they were done with the session, the desk was really starting to take shape. And so they said, okay, do what you can. Now that you know this is what we do what you can, and we'll come back in a couple of days and see, you know, how things are going. Well, they arrived 2 days later and the parents were like, oh my gosh, you're a miracle worker. And they went to see the room and the rest of the room was completely organized. And they talked to the teenager and he said, I just didn't know how to do it. But now it's so much easier. I know where my art supplies are. I know, you know, so that I can do it. Well, then they did the same thing with the files in their backpack. So there was one file that's just homework to be turned in. So as soon as he finished something, he would put it in the file folder, homework to be turned in, and he knew where to find it and he knew where that was going. So how is it organized is a really important question. And I think it reduces our stress when we know where stuff is, because then you don't have to take the time to look for it, right? But to give that gift to our children, how many shows have there been recently, you know, on the different streaming services where somebody comes to somebody's house and organizes the house, and how much freer are they? How much stress is removed? So we need to do this for ourselves and our kids, especially around the accoutrement for school. Because if the whole battleship gets sunk, if we can't find the backpack and we can't find the homework and we can't find the pencil and we can't find the glue stick, right? So figure it out now and make it as fun for you and for them as possible. The fact that there were labels, this young man, he was like, I didn't know about that. Because he was like 14 years old. How would he know about that? But once he knew, he took and applied that to the rest of his room. So absolutely amazing. So how is it organized? Where does it live? And what is needed? You don't have to buy all the school supplies, although I like to. All right, onward and upward. So the ritual. And again, the ritual is to reduce the anxiety. You want to ask yourself, what are the rituals to getting to school? There's a couple, right? There's the morning routine, there's the getting in the car, there's the drop off, there's the pickup, there's the homework, and then there's the bedtime. Those are all rituals that we are going to engage in that could have a visual schedule to go with them. That would reduce the anxiety. But then you also want to think to yourself, which ones are the most stressful and why? And how can I automate it? I remember years ago when I used to visit my niece's house, and on Sunday night, they had a ritual where they all gathered around the island of the kitchen, and they made a bunch of, they were peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which I don't know that that's the thing, but they made a bunch of sandwiches and they had a container that the sandwiches all went into with a lid on it so that in the morning, when it was time to get ready, that the school lunch got made by just taking one of the sandwiches and sticking it in the sleeve and putting it in the bag. I know other people in our household, because my son was gluten-free, but especially like for a really exciting week, he loved gluten-free pizza, and you really couldn't get that, gluten-free, dairy-free pizza. You couldn't get that at school. So my husband would go on Sunday night, get a pizza, and we would section it out and put, 2 pieces. We had the wax paper bags that are super awesome and not bad for the environment. And we would stick 2 pieces of, they were little pizzas, right? 2 pieces of pizza, and, so that they were all lined up for the lunches. What can you automate to make the morning thing easier? And just take a moment to think about that and go, what do I need to do for my family? And it may be that your child is buying school lunch. So where's the money? But how can you automate it so that it's just boom, 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 and you don't have to think it through every morning and get anxious? But again, the visual prompts, whether, in my family, we're all a little bit like high strung and forgetful when we're going out the door. So often there's something by the door to remind somebody of something. It's a visual prompt. This could be a visual schedule or just something that you leave on the door or by the door. What do you need to do to make it easier for yourself and easier for your kiddo? I don't know. Is it me? I just had like a minor anxiety attack just thinking about how stressful it used to be, because I had to go to work and I had to get my son to school, and my husband was often leaving to go to work. And so it's like 3 people trying to get out the door and face all the stress of leaving the house. And do I have everything that I need? Let's everybody take a breath, including me. But ask yourself, how can I make this easier? It's a little bit different for every person, but automate what you can. Okay, so I think that's all the stuff that we had for the home, yes? And now we can move on to talking about school, because often this is even more stressful, right? But there are 3 keys to school which are going to help us, and we're going to delve into these things. Number 1, communication. If you're watching this show, it's likely that your child has some sort of a delay or deficit in the area of communication. And that makes school hard. And that means that we, as their protector, as the people who love them the most, all kinds of people love our kids, but we love them the most, we have to communicate on steroids, right? And we need to collaborate. If we go into the school with a mindset of that we're going to collaborate, we can often convince them to collaborate. And then we talk about the roadmap to success. So let's delve into these things. So first of all, communicate. And I think the single most important thing, we can go on to the next slide whenever you're ready, Chris. I think the single most important thing is to find out how the other person prefers to be communicated with and how often. And that starts with your teacher, your child's teacher. You're going to back to school night, ask that question. How do you like to communicate with me? How do you like for me to communicate with you? Some teachers like a note, and others are like, really? I got to open notes when they come in? Like, send me, they have, some schools have a communication system where you can send like a text to a teacher, but it's in a closed environment, not on their phone, but it's like a text that you can send. So other teachers do like a notebook that goes back and forth where you write a note to the teacher and the teacher writes a note to you. I don't know what your teacher's preferred method is, but I will tell you, you won't know unless you ask. And yes, sometimes you will ask them and they don't know. And then it's okay to try things. If they say, I don't really know, that's probably a newer teacher. There's nothing wrong with that. New teachers are good teachers. But then maybe make a suggestion and say, okay, well, let's try the notebook. And if you find that that's not working for you, will you please let me know? That kind of consideration, just asking and listening and already starting to collaborate, I think the teacher will take a breath and go, oh, this is a kind person who sees that I want to help their child. And that's really the message that you always want to be sending. Can you full screen it again for me, Chris? Thank you. I think aside from knowing how to communicate, the single biggest fear that we have as parents revolves around safety. Am I right? Am I right? That's the thing that, yes, we worry about, is our kid going to fit in and are the other kids going to be nice to them? But more than anything, I think when we drop our kids off for school, we just want to know that they're going to be safe. And for all of us, that's a different consideration. Can I tell you that when I first sent Jem to school, my consideration was there a way that he was going to get out the gate and be out in the community? And I let them know that was my biggest concern, that he would just walk out of school. Because my friends, it has happened. It has happened at schools. And our kids, we need to make sure that somebody's got an eye on it and there are alarms. Later on, there were other things that I was concerned about. So I don't know what it is for you, but I know that you have safety concerns. And I think you owe it to yourself to address that with the school. Depending on what the safety concern is, that might be, you may ask for an IEP meeting, and you can ask for an early emergency IEP meeting to discuss safety concerns. You can talk with a teacher about it. You can talk with the principal about it. There are all kinds of people at the school that you can have either a single conversation or a big meeting conversation. But I think it's important to get your concerns noted. I think it's important to put them in writing. I think it's important to say, can you please tell me what you have in place around this? I'd love to work with you on this, right? We're going to talk about collaboration in a second, but don't just sit on your concerns. You need to voice them. And then it is critical at the beginning of the year that you have an understanding of who are the members of the team. Now, I'm just going to tell you that one of the ways that you could really, really address this effectively is, come to school with some sort of little welcome back to school gift. It can be a little baggie of candy with a pencil stuck in it, right? You don't have to get too clever, but say, I want to give this, and maybe it has your email on it, right? So that if people want to reach out to you, but you walk in and you say, can I just know who the members of my child's team are? Because I have a little something for everybody. And they will quickly identify who those people are so that they can get the little gift. And don't leave out the secretaries sitting in the front, because you want them on your side. But you need to know who are the members of your team. How do you get a hold of them? What is the role that they play? This is going to be really critical for you, because if your child is having a difficulty with something, you don't want to spend 2 days figuring out who is the person who deals with that, right? Be smart. Know who those people are right off the bat. And by giving a little teeny tiny gift, I'm not saying spend even $1 on each gift. You get some M&Ms or something, and put a pencil next to it. You're under $1 for each one of them, with a little bow with, that says, I am so-and-so's mother. Here's my email. Thank you for welcoming them. You will be the talk of the teacher, lounge. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so on to collaboration. So really important that, again, you use the preferred communication method to collaborate. Be clear, be concise. This is the hardest thing. My goodness. I love talking to moms on a regular basis, and I know the drill. I know that the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell the whole story, right? And before we get to the what's going on, school doesn't have time for that, my friends. I know. And if you need somebody to talk to, call me. Call your best friend. Call somebody. But try to, how when we're teaching our kids, we try to get as few words as possible so that it's clear and concise. Same thing when you're talking to school professionals. What is it you want? What do you need? What are you trying to say? Get it in as few words as possible, because they just don't have time. We want to reward good behavior. Anytime somebody does something wonderful for you or your kiddo in the school arena, Say thank you, say you're awesome, and say it in the biggest possible way that you can say it, whether that's vocally, verbally, or, sending a tissue box to school because they always need tissues. Let me tell you, they always need tissues. And say with a card that says, thank you, I really appreciated you doing this. Here's a donation to the tissue thing. But, with a little card saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're amazing. I'm telling you, I know you're all going to hate me for saying this, but this is ABA and this is what works in the world. Saying thank you and good job when somebody does something good. And sometimes when you're out of the habit of it, it hurts. Or if you've been mad at the person, it hurts. I will tell you something, your life will get better if you say thank you in kind and wonderful ways, and I appreciate you, you will feel better. It will reduce your stress, and I suspect we'll all live longer. So do that. But here's the big one. Here is the big one. Volunteer. When you let the school know that you are interested in what's going on in there and that you would like to come in and volunteer, I've worked in schools. Automatically, you are a parent who's put in the category of, oh, these people care about this school and about us and their kid and the other kids. I'm just telling you like it is. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I know some of you work so many jobs and you're like, I don't have time to volunteer. And I'm telling you, it's worth it to take a vacation day every once in a while and go volunteer in your child's school, because they will look at you differently. You will be a part of what's happening that's good instead of somebody they're working against. I'm being honest with you and telling tales on teachers, but there are people who drop their kids off at school and go, not my circus, not my monkeys, you're responsible here, and why aren't you doing a better job? And there is bitterness. There is bitterness because we're supposed to be working collaboratively. And when you say, I'd like to volunteer, everybody goes, okay, they're a parent that's collaborating. And they're instantly going to get along better with you. And that does have benefits for your child. Okay. And then the last one, which I think is a really important point, be flexible when it's not at your child's expense. So, there are things that you'd like and things that you want, but if it's not at your child's expense, ask yourself, can I go along with this? I'm going to give a really bad example. My son was at a school that I ended up pulling him out of that school eventually. But they had a new principal come in. We'd had the best principal forever. They had a new principal come in, and boy, was she a piece of work. And her big thing from day one was that when everybody was out and, everybody had to line up in their classes for their teachers to come and get them, same place that they would go in a fire drill. And I understood what that was about. And they had a policy that the teacher would go through the line and greet every single child every morning. And I liked that. Well, the new principal came in and said, I will address all of them first thing, and they will all take a knee. I really hated that. Can we just say for a moment how much I hated that they needed to take a knee? And I had a boy who was going, but sometimes we live in California and sometimes he would be in shorts, and to take a knee on a gravel thing, I just thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. But my son didn't mind it. It was not for very long. And, we had taught him how to take a knee and how to put something underneath his knee so that he didn't get gravel embedded in his knee. And it wasn't hurting him to learn how to do something different for this megalomaniac witch of a woman. So we decided to be flexible with it. Then there were other things that ended up being at my child's expense that I went, no, we're not doing it your way. And there ensued a problem. But if it is something that is not going to be at your child's expense, find it within your heart to be flexible and try it the teacher's way, the principal's way, the art teacher's way, whatever. But don't be flexible when it is at your child's expense. I had his RSP, which is the resource that often they were in charge of the IEP. when it would be time for testing, she would tell me, well, we have to be able to pull him out of class. And I would tell her, no, that's at my child's expense. You're not pulling him out of class. And she was like, well, but we have to do it. And I'm like, I will bring him before school or I will bring him after school, but you're not pulling him out of class to do your testing. Well, we have very little time and I'm not here in the morning. I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be flexible about that because it's at my child's expense. You get to decide for yourself, but in order to be that rigid about things like that, you have to be flexible about all the things that don't matter. Otherwise, you get labeled a problem. Sometimes you get labeled a problem anyway, but if you volunteer and if you're collaborating on the other things, it mitigates it. It does. Okay, on to our next thing. So the roadmap for success. So it's critical at school to have a plan. Your plan is your child's IEP or their 504, but I hope that if your child is on the autism spectrum that you have an IEP. And if this year especially, they're going to be fighting to put everybody on a 504, you guys, because they don't have the funding, don't cave to it. Keep the IEP. But it is critical. You can't just trust the IEP. You got to check, are they in compliance with the IEP? Is your child getting the amount of speech that it says on the thing that they're getting? If they're not, you got to squawk. It is critical to reward success. If the people at your school are doing what they're supposed to be doing, again, find the way. That could just be saying thank you verbally out loud, sending a little card saying thank you, sending a box of tissue. Reward success. Tell people, I appreciate that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I know part of us feels like, why should I have to compliment them for doing what legally they're supposed to do? Because it works. That's why. At the end of the day, we don't want to be in court with these people saying you didn't comply with the IEP. At the end of the day, we want our child to have the IEP in place, right? So we got to reward success. And part of that is when we're checking on things, if we see that something isn't working or it's not happening, we have to make course corrections. I talk all the time about when a plane takes off from Los Angeles on its way to New York, it's off course more than 50% of the time. It's little itty bitty course corrections that make sure that plane lands in New York. And we have to be doing that throughout the year. But notice what I put for the last two: reward success, because that's how important it is. Tell people when they're doing a good job, and there's a million ways that you can do that. I especially like at the end of the year that I always write letters of recommendation for the people who did a good job. And word got out about it that, that mom writes awesome letters of recommendation at the end of the year if you do a good job. It's like a tip, right? What do tips stand for? To ensure proper service, right? And yet the tip comes at the end. But the reason why we tip is because the hope of the server is that they're going to get a good tip for having. Now, should they want to do a good job anyway? Sure, we can have that argument. But when it's our kid, really, I want to make sure. I want to set my kid up for success. So letting teachers know that I'm going to compliment, that I'm going to send thoughtful little non-expensive gifts like tissue boxes, and I'm going to write letters of recommendation and thank you notes. Yes. And I've been a teacher. Can I tell you, everybody thinks it's about the big gifts and the gift cards and whatever. Gift cards are great. But a lot of times they sit in people's, wallets because you don't go to that store, right? Or you forget or whatever. Nobody ever forgets a thank you note. They just don't. And little boxes of tissue. And listen, at our school, that was always the thing. If you sent a box of nice tissue that wasn't like industrial wallpaper, oh my goodness, it was everything, right? Maybe that's not the thing at your school. And maybe, when you do the back to school night, ask the teacher, what kinds of things do you need in your classroom? Remember that these wonderful people are often going and spending money out of their own pockets to get their school supplies, which is why they're on Pinterest selling things so that they can defray that cost. Make a donation, very small things that don't have to break your bank. Raina, you can relate, huh? But those small gifts make a big difference. And it can be as simple as just regular thank you notes. Oh, listen, teachers don't get paid that much comparatively to other jobs. And it's very hard to be a successful teacher and phone it in, right? It's not that kind of job that you can just come in and go, today I'm not going to give 100%. Good luck with that. That won't happen. So these are people who have said, I want to make a difference in my life. I know everybody thinks teachers become teachers because they want the summer off. Oh, my friends. People who think that don't stay being teachers. They just don't. It's a hard, hard job. So when you find that you've got somebody good, reward, right? It's absolutely amazing. Okay, on to the child, because now we've talked about school, we've talked about home. So now for the child, to get them ready for school, we got to set the stage. We need to be talking to them about back to school. We got to make it fun. There are books that you can read. Your child's going into third grade. You go to the bookstore and get the book that says, they have titles for every single grade. I'm a big third grader, or whatever the title is that they like. But you gotta set the stage by telling them, oh, third grade's the best. You know what you're gonna get to do in third grade? Tell them and make it sound fun, make it fun, and then practice. We're gonna talk about practice in just a second here. Okay, so on to the next slide. So set the stage, make a space for learning in your house. Listen, we found in COVID that this was, there were a lot of people who hadn't done this already and they were scrambling. They're like, all right, where are we? But you know what? There were a lot of bad things about COVID, but there were a couple of good things. And this one was the good thing. Everybody had a space in their house where their child could sit and do their schoolwork. Sometimes it was, on a stool at the counter. Sometimes it's at the dining room table. Some people, I remember we bought a architect desk for me and for my son that was shipped to us, and we put them together. We're still using them. I want to say they were like $49. It was not expensive. And when we want to do art projects, we can tip them up so that, very small so they can fit in small spaces, very useful. But you got to set up a place for learning. And it's very hard when, I'm not saying it's impossible, but when it has to be a conversion space where it's the dining room table, but then we're going to have, then that's fine. You can do that, but I want to revert back to where does the stuff go? Because if that's the case, then we have to have a ritual of, okay, everything's on the table while we're doing it, but then it all gets packed in the backpack and the backpack lives here. Otherwise, you lose your dining room table for the entire year, and that's not good either. But you do what you have to do, right? Okay, so you got to make a fuss over what they're going to wear to school and their hair. Now, I know a lot of people who are like, Shannon, this is just too much. I got to say to you, I just don't think it is. If we make it exciting for the first day, that helps us, because there's butterflies around. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what class I'm going to be in. I don't know what the teacher's going to be like. I don't know who I'm going to be sitting next to. There's a lot of unknowns, right? So if we start every year in making a fuss over what are you going to wear? It's the first day of school. We're going to take pictures. You're going to go and get your hair cut. You're going to get new shoes, right? It's excitement about it. And if we give them choices, how would you like your hair to be done? What kind of shoes do you want to get for your new school shoes? Which outfit do you want to wear for the first day? It gives them pride in their appearance. It says this is an important thing. It says this is a good thing, right? So I do think that that's critical and important. And again, I say new shoes, new what? It could be new to them, right? There are very inexpensive ways of getting these things done. You go and visit your local thrift store. They have amazing things there, but it's new to them. And if you help them to pick it out, then they're excited and they're proud to wear what they're wearing. It doesn't take care of everything, but you start putting things into columns. It's like, okay, so this is stressful, but we got all these other things. If you can equal it out, you're going to be more successful. And then, of course, the last one is you got to talk this thing up. Oh, it's so exciting. It's so wonderful. It's going to be, you're going to have such a good time. You're going to, whatever it is, talk it up. You've been to whatever grade they've been in. I don't care if you make it up and it's an acting job, but tell them, oh my gosh, I love to talk to kids when they're getting ready to, I go, what grade are you going into this grade? And they're like, oh, second grade. I'm like, oh, second grade's my favorite. It doesn't matter what they say. It's my favorite. And if there's more than one kid and I go, oh, second is my favorite. And somebody else says, well, I'm starting seventh grade. Oh my gosh. I forgot how much I loved seventh grade. It's a lie. I hated seventh grade. But I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to tell them, oh, seventh grade is, what's great about seventh grade is that now you're like a teenager. You get so many more rights. You're going to get to do so many and make so many more choices, and you're going to get electives. You focus on what's good, right? Talk this up so that they feel like, all right, this might be something exciting. Okay, we're running out of time. I got to go quick. We got to make it fun. That means it's got to be personalized for them. Anything that you can personalize. Back in the day, we used to have those huge Trapper notebooks, and boy, it was a big deal. You picked out the Trapper notebook that was your personality. Well, now it's the T-shirts, right? Or the pencils, or whatever it is. Make it personal to them. That if they like all the little glitzes on thing, glitz it up. Have them help you glitz it up. If they like Lightning McQueen, that it's Lightning McQueen on everything. If they like Peppa the Pig, that we get the Peppa the Pig pen. I don't know. Make it personal to them. Be positive about all of it and plan a treat or a reward for the first day. We were talking about this with Dr. Grampiche last week. I mentioned that I have the friend that they always do breakfast for dinner. First day for us, we used to live, the school was very close to a place that's called Mount Asia, that it's an arcade and it has bumper cars and, the whole thing. So we would always go to Mount Asia. It was like, all right, you did the first day, we get to go to Mount Asia and, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. So some sort of a reward retreat. And the first couple of years, it's going to be like, oh, okay. But then it's going to become part of the ritual that your child, and listen, when they get into junior high and high school, you're going to be happy that you started that ritual. Okay. I think we have one more. Yes. Practice. The practice. Play school at home. What a fun game to play school at home. And invite other kids over and say, we're going to play school, and let your child be the teacher. Let them be the student. Let them practice. It's fun to play school lunch. You can do that with your child today. Oh, let's pack a lunch and then let's pretend that it's school lunch. And you can go to a store and get little cartons of milk and whatever they're going to have at the school, whether it's a juice box and you got to show them how to jam the thing into the thing. Practice at home. Put their stuff in the bags that it's going to be in their lunchbox. Show them how to undo their lunchbox. Practice. We do this with fire drills. How come? Because then our body has a memory of it and it's less stressful. If possible, visit the school. Sometimes it's just driving by the school in the summer. Sometimes it's going in, meeting the secretaries, saying hi, and asking for a visit to the classroom. This week is kind of a good week to do that because the teachers are in there and setting up. And if you get an opportunity to meet the classroom teacher and see the room, and sometimes the teacher's all like delighted and thrilled and says, oh, let me show you exactly where you're going to be sitting. That's one less thing to worry about later on. So all of these things are not meant to stress you out. If it becomes a to-do list for you and you're like, I got all this stuff to do and I'm behind, stop, take a breath. That's not what this is about. Pick and choose the ones that sounded the most fun to you if it's overwhelming, and just do those. But the whole point of this is to reduce the stress. Everything that we just talked about is to reduce the stress so that there is an opportunity to go and have fun and learn and make friends. Because at the end of the day, that is what the experience is that your child needs at school this year. I know you're like, but there's all these academic, I get it. But you know what? You can make up a lot of that over the summer. If they don't get it during the school year, summer's a great time to make up all the academic stuff that they didn't do in really fun and creative ways. What's really critical is that your child goes to school and has fun and feels safe, that they learn on some level, and that they begin to make friends. That's really what you want to get out of school. And if they are stressed, all of that's going to be harder. We don't want anything to be harder. So let's set them up for success. Let's do as much as we can to put things on an even keel. You know, we always talk with Dr. Grampy about making it fair. If they know what to expect, it's infinitely fairer. And then maybe they can have fun. So that's our talk for today. Again, if you are interested, I need a couple of volunteers who want to look at a product for a couple of hours this week. You'll get a free ability to look at it. But I need a couple of volunteers to look at a product and give us feedback. You can write to me at shannon@autism-live.com. If you know somebody who wants a toy gift or some kind of item featured in the toy guide, a book, let me know at that same address too. You guys, we are back tomorrow and we have a great show. Can't remember what it is. Getting old, but we have a great show tomorrow. And it is a live show tomorrow on Autism Live. And next week, I believe we're back with Dr. Grampy, who I know you all missed today. But we will be back with her next Tuesday. But tomorrow, live show tomorrow, you won't want to miss it. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.